All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started then. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining. This is our latest Aquaculture Information Exchange Connect and Learn presentation. Today we have Maya Pelletier with the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center presenting on K through 12 aquaculture education, but also how it ties into workforce development. I'm really excited to have this presentation because our education group on the website is probably one of the most active, and it's been great to see educational resources related to aquaculture being posted and discussed on our website. Um, I want to just really quickly before we jump into the presentation, also drop a link to our YouTube channel, which is where we upload all of these presentations after they're recorded. So if you'd like to catch up on past presentations, we have a lot of great stuff on there. But other than that, Maya, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Hi, everybody. So my name is Maya Pelletier, and I work for the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center. Shockingly, that is based in Maine. So we're kind of, way up in the corner of the country. Um, I will jump into things in just a minute, but if people want to start out, just putting into the chat what your relationship to aquaculture education is, that would be awesome. Also, keep in mind at any point, if you have questions, I'm pretty sure you can all unmute and just interrupt me. I get really excited and I get going sometimes. So I'm happy to answer questions as we're moving through this. So as I said, I'm going to get started, but my name is Maya, and I actually grew up in Maine, on the coast of Maine, and just kind of exploring the ocean, exploring different parts of the working waterfront. And then I went away for college and ran into aquaculture actually as a concept during that time, and decided that I would come back to Maine because Maine was a place where there's a lot of aquaculture happening, and specifically seaweed aquaculture. So that's kind of where I landed was the seaweed aquaculture and education sphere, also around workforce development. But at MAIC, I'm actually the workforce and education manager. So we have a lot of different work kind of work areas, but I am focused in that kind of workforce development stuff. Um, so a little bit about MAIC. We were founded in 1988, and we have our mission is to assist in developing socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable aquaculture opportunities in Maine. So almost all of our work is focused in Maine. Some of our work also connects to places out of state as well, and we're always excited to connect with collaborators outside of the state, but we always have kind of a component of what we're doing being connected to the Maine aquaculture industry. Within our organization, we have four different streams of work. So we do business development. So some of the folks on this call are probably familiar with some of that work, but we have aquaculture incubator spaces where people can come and kind of try out ideas. And we also have other resources for business owners and people starting up. And then we also, beyond business development, we do social and natural science research. So we do a lot of work with social license to operate, what Todd was mentioning. So our social scientist does a lot of that research, and we also do natural science research. For example, we have some projects right now on sea scallop hatcheries. And a lot of this work is informed by our polls and surveys of the Maine aquaculture community. So we try to do things that are really based off of that industry perspective. Then we have workforce and education. So that is me, and that's what I get really excited about. And we're going to spend most of our time today talking about that. So I won't get in too much right now about what that is because deeper in just a sec. But that is kind of K through 12 and then post-secondary. So we've got kind of two areas within workforce and education. And then we have knowledge sharing. And for that, we're talking about conferences. So if anybody's ever been to NACE, the Northeast Aquaculture Conference and Exposition, that is an MAIC conference that is a partnership with Milford Aquaculture Center. So that's MAIC. It's a lot, but we'll keep going. So here we go. We're going to dive into education and workforce development. So MAIC is technically based at the Darling Marine Center, which is the University of Maine's marine campus on the Damariscotta River, but we actually work all over the state. So I'm based in Portland. We do a lot of work in Down East Maine. So for folks that aren't sure where Down East Maine is, it's like keep going all the way as far east as you can go, almost to Canada. That's Down East Maine. It's kind of a funny way to call it, but that's what we call it. So we do work across the state, and we are really focusing on building up this pipeline for education and workforce development that will help support a thriving aquaculture industry in Maine. And what we want to make sure with this pipeline is that people through at any stage have the opportunities available to them to get involved. So in my story that I told a little bit at the beginning, I didn't know about aquaculture until college. And I grew up on the coast of Maine with aquaculture farms near me, and I didn't know that they existed. Which I think speaks to just the experience of our community members here and how that can change by reaching people at different ages. So we start out with K through 12 education, and I've kind of broken that up into K through 8 and then high school. And at the K through 8 level, we're really focusing on kind of the students and the teachers. Then at the high school level, we're focusing on working with students to head towards career preparedness. And then in post-secondary, we're working on workforce training or alternatively pathways for people to enter into advanced degrees, 4-year degrees or advanced degrees in aquaculture science. A really important aspect of all of our aquaculture workforce and education work is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you'll see in this pipeline diagram that I've got here, we've got our whole pipeline. Overall, we have this building in diversity, equity, and inclusion directly. So that's something that we really want to focus on throughout this whole construction of our workforce and education pipeline. We don't want people to be left out because of their race or because of their gender or because they're in a rural community or even because they're really far away from the ocean. So we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that we reach all different communities with different learning styles at different ages. So you can see a couple of the programs that we've got going on. We have some seaweed education. So this is the seaweed curriculum. We'll get into talking a little bit more about that for the K through 8 level. This was generously sponsored by the World Wildlife Fund, actually. So Todd Page on this call has had a lot to do with that project, and we're very grateful for his and their support of that work. We've also just gotten a grant to continue a lot of our workforce and education work at that level. So that's some USDA funding. So I'll talk about that in a moment. Then we kind of move up to the high school level. And at the high school level, we're looking at some pre-apprenticeships that are kind of supporting students who are interested in trying out aquaculture careers. So that for that, we're looking at opportunities with Washington County Community College. And then another class that's called Exploring Aquaculture Careers, which again is another partnership with the community college and also Jobs for Maine graduates. So we'll get into a little bit more about how those programs work. And then finally, for our post-secondary education, we have the partnership between the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center and the Washington County Community College supports apprenticeships. There's also an aquaculture technology program. And so both of those are kind of with the community college, then separately with a number of other MAIC partners, including the Maine Aquaculture Association, Maine Sea Grant, the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, and the Center for CEI. I can't remember the acronym right now, but we work together to do aquaculture in shared waters. And then we have recently done what we're calling an aquaculture boot camp, but may get renamed because there are a lot of them in the state. So that's kind of a high-level overview of all of the different streams of work that we have going on at MAIC in our education and workforce development portion of our workflow. But what I really want to highlight here is just that at each stage, as we're moving through education, we are really trying to reach people throughout that time. So it's not all in the elementary school level, and it's not all after students have graduated from high school. It's really throughout. And I think that's really key to how we and many of our partners across the state have approached education. So for this presentation, kind of as we move forward, I'm going to focus in a specific county of Maine, so Washington County. And the reason for that is because MAIC has a lot of work going on with partners, including Sunrise Economic Council and the Washington County Community College, and we're doing a lot of work in Down East Maine. So we're going to kind of highlight that work. And that's also going to kind of highlight how we are working to close the gaps in the workforce pipeline. So for those who aren't familiar with Maine, we've got a map here. So can you guys see my mouse? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I'm actually based down in Portland, so like down in this area, but this coastline of Maine is quite long, and it actually takes me 4 or 5 hours to get all the way down east, which is Washington County, this area. So it is kind of down and east from northern Maine, and that's how we get that region right there. So this is down east Maine, and this part of the state is, let's go to the next map. There we go. So this part of the state is very rural. It has very low percentage of Maine's population. And that's kind of represented by this graph that with the red here. You can see most of our population in the state is concentrated in southern Maine, much less in the coastal down east area. However, if you're looking at this other graph, you can see that we have a lot of lobster landings happening in that portion of down east Maine, so that part of the state. And what that really represents is just how many people are really deeply involved in the working waterfront community in Maine. So we're a coastal state and we have a long history of working on the water. It's really a deep part of our culture and the economic fabric of our community as well. And so I think what's really important to note through this graphic is just that, we do have more population in southern Maine, but the population in down east Maine is really dependent on our working waterfront industries. And as the working waterfront is shifting due to climate change, we're going to see a lot of shifts in that region. And so that's an area of the state that's very vulnerable to those shifts. And therefore, we're also really interested in supporting aquaculture development in that part of the state as a resiliency measure in response to climate change. So aquaculture currently in Washington County, we've kind of broken this graphic up here by the different numbers of farms. So the way that leasing and licensing works in Maine, you kind of have different categories or different levels of the lease. So you can have a limited purpose aquaculture license, which is a very small 400 square. You can have a experimental lease, and then you can have a standard lease. And the experimental leases, most people who have those are research-oriented institutions. So in this graphic, you can see that we'll start with finfish. So for all of the finfish that are in the water, we have 13 leases, 5 are pending. approval. All of those are owned actually by the same company. Then we can move on to, we'll skip over finfish wrasse because that's land-based, but it is actually, we won't skip it. I'll talk about it. So it is a land-based facility, and we have one that is pending in down East Maine right now. And so that will be for kingfish. And then we have shellfish. So you can see that shellfish has 31 LPAs. Those are the limited purpose aquaculture licenses. And with the LPAs, we have the most in shellfish aquaculture in that region of the state. And then we have one lease and 5 leases that are pending. And then in seaweed, we have, that's a kind of a much newer sector of Maine aquaculture, but it's growing very quickly. And that has 12 LPAs and 1 lease. Within the shellfish companies, 9 companies are representing these shellfish leases. So some people have multiple LPAs. And within the seaweed, 5 are representing startup businesses. So you can see that a lot of these businesses are kind of just getting started. We can tell because they still have LPAs, but they're kind of moving in towards wanting to have leases. So they're expanding their capacity to support workforce, which means that there's going to be a demand growing for that workforce in the next, 5-10 years. As we're moving forward, these businesses are kind of continuing to pop up, continuing to grow, and that means that they will need people to work and who understand what aquaculture is. And that brings us back to our pipeline, which is how we're going to help support these businesses as they're growing and do it in a sustainable way that's responsive to the environmental needs of the ecology in the area and also the economic needs of the community. So we'll start out by talking about aquaculture in K through 12 classrooms. So really this should say K through 8 because we'll do K through 12 or the high school level more in the next slide. But we have taken the approach at MAIC of working on educating the educators. So something that we've noticed is that there is interest among teachers in doing things that are place-based, so really connected to the communities they're in, that focus on the industry and the environment around them. But a lot of people don't really know about aquaculture. And they don't necessarily have the confidence to, teach a whole class about it. And so what we are working on doing is creating resources for these teachers. So the big project that we started this effort with was our seaweed curriculum project. And again, this was funded by the World Wildlife Fund. We got this beautiful book over here called With a Little Kelp from Our Friends. And what we ended up doing was we actually broke that book into sections. So we have like 13 sections. And then we found activities and created some activities that align with the content of the book. And then we aligned those to teaching standards at the 5th and 6th grade level. And we built out this online curriculum. And I will show you all of that webpage in just a minute. But what we did is we created it as an online resource so that people could access it for free. We really focused on selecting activities that could be done regardless of how close to the ocean you are. So none of our activities actually involve going to the ocean. And that's intentional. As much as I personally love going to the ocean and I love seeing kids exploring tide pools and discovering things, we also understand that a lot of kids aren't going to be able to do that just because of the logistics of getting all those people to the coast. Someday we would love to have that happen, but we wanted to kind of meet people where they're at right now. And where people are at right now is I can, throw in an aquaculture activity in the lessons I'm already teaching, but I need it connected to the standards and I need to be able to have the resources explained. And so what we did is we kind of built up this resource. We created a number of these videos. So we have a video series called Kelp Us Learn. And we went around the state and we interviewed seaweed professionals in Maine to figure out kind of how they're connected to the industry and all of these jobs. And the goal is really to get kids in a place where they see themselves in the industry. And they can kind of look at these different jobs and say, oh, you know what? I don't want to be a scientist, but I really love cooking and I want to be a chef and I want to work with seafood products. And so that's how we've kind of tried to connect these bigger concepts into the students' vision. And what we've done with this curriculum is we actually hosted a workshop last year, and we're hosting it again this year, actually next Friday. So exciting things happening in Maine right now. So we're hosting this workshop to teach the teachers about seaweed aquaculture, and they get to come and they get to eat seaweed and they get to do a bunch of seaweed activities that they can then take back to their classroom and highlight. And so that's been very exciting work. And in as an extension of this work that we started with WWF, we've actually applied for another grant that we were awarded from the USDA PDAL. And we will be continuing the seaweed work through this year. And then in the following 2 years, we will be doing shellfish aquaculture education, followed by finfish and aquaponic aquaculture education. So we're kind of building on what we've started, and we're looking to kind of create this teaching the teachers opportunity around aquaculture so that we can get aquaculture into more classrooms. So that's some of our K through 8. Then we move on to the exploring careers. So we have teachers in Washington County that have attended our workshop. They've done seaweed. Many of them are at the elementary school level. You think, okay, after the kids move from elementary, middle school, they're going into high school. Maybe they want to try out aquaculture themselves in a more direct way. And at this point, that's where we get into our exploring careers and kind of our closing the gap, as it were, between elementary school and people who might be either entering college or entering the workforce. And so we have partnered with Washington County Community College to develop this program that kind of 2 parts. So the first part is the Exploring Aquaculture Careers course. And this course connects with students in Down East Maine and actually takes the students out on field trips to aquaculture facilities. This is done through the Washington County Community College in partnership with Jobs for Maine graduates. And you can see in these photos some of the most recent students who have participated in this program. And they get to go out and they can do some pretty cool stuff. So they get to go on boat rides. They get to go explore and kind of tour these aquaculture facilities. And beyond that, they actually get to get their hands dirty. So you can see in the mud here, they are actually working on a experimental clam plot. They were able to go to a seaweed farm and hang seaweed. So they're really getting that hands-on learning experience. And it gives them the opportunity to meet people in the industry. So they're meeting the farmers, they're meeting the people who are processing the seaweed or the other aquaculture products. And that's really exciting because when they get to meet those people, not only are they seeing kind of how the industry actually works, they are also having the opportunity to ask all of the questions that they might have. Because sometimes, if many of you have worked with students, sometimes they don't have questions when you are sitting in a classroom, but the second you get outside and you're doing stuff hands-on, you're connecting with their brains in a different way, and they have a lot of questions. So that is kind of the next stage of this workforce pipeline that we've got going on. Then, moving on from our high school level, we kind of have this community college tie happening in the high schools. And then we've got the next stage, which is our post-secondary workforce stuff. And this is in Washington County. A lot of it is happening with the Washington County Community College and MAIC partnership. And between the 2 organizations, we have created the first aquaculture technology 2-year degree program in the state of Maine. And this is a really exciting program that can connect people with opportunities for learning about the aquaculture industry in a hands-on way. So it's a bit, it's a bit different than if you go to a four-year college. These classes tend to be a lot smaller, and you end up getting a lot of hands-on time in the industry. Um, and the way that this program is set up is actually so that there are three options for taking classes. The first option is, say you're someone, you're a teacher maybe, and you're really interested in seaweed aquaculture, and you see that Washington County Community College is offering an introduction to seaweed class. You can take that class and not take any other classes in the program, and that's totally fine. So you can take it on a class by class basis. The next the next level up is you can take a certificate program that's 1 year, and that is I think it's 31 credit program. And then the final option is the 2-year Associates in Applied Science, and that is a 63 credit program that prepares people to enter the industry, to kind of go directly into working for an aquaculture organization, or to roll up to a 4 degree at a other university. So you kind of have multiple options, and the program is really designed to be as flexible as possible. So we attract students from different stages of life, some students right out of high school, some students who are coming back for second or even third careers. So in these photos here, you can see some students who were working on an aquaponics setup here with this little tank. And then here you can see some of my students who were taking my seaweed class. And we were doing an activity where we were actually practicing spawning the seaweed, which you would do in a nursery setting. So we were able to go to a lab facility and get seaweed sorus tissue and actually do that in the classroom. And that was pretty exciting. And with my students here, we have people from a variety of different stages of life, and some of them, actually most of them, have their day jobs and their other careers, and they were taking this class in the evenings, and then we did one full day workshop of hands-on stuff. So that kind of encapsulates that aquaculture technology program. And then the next slide. What I really want to highlight with all of this work is that workforce development in Maine is not happening in a vacuum. So there are so many partners and organizations that are involved. In Maine, there are numerous opportunities that are emerging to help with everything from education in elementary classrooms to workforce apprenticeships for adults entering the industry. And what workforce development is really about, I think, is creating these opportunities as one thing, but then also building the connections between all of these organizations and the partners involved in the industry. We in Maine are very collaborative, and we're doing all of this work together with partners. It's never just one organization. And I think that's what's making it really impactful and really powerful across the state. So I will take questions in a sec, but before that, I do want to just show some of the websites that we have. And then I'll come back to this, but I'm going to share a different screen and hopefully that works. So here we go. Do, do, do.
Yeah, and if people want to start leaving questions in the chat, I'd be happy to relay them to Maya after she shows us these websites. And actually, I'll take this opportunity to we have an exit survey that it would be great if y'all could fill it out. It's just a few questions about these presentations, and it helps us improve them. But yeah, back to you, Maya.
Thanks. I just want to see, I want to see if I can share my audio with this, because that will allow me to actually show you guys a video of some of our work. Well, we'll try it, and if it doesn't work, then say la vie. All right. So the first thing I'm showing you here is our kelp curriculum. So This is that first fifth and sixth grade opportunity that I was talking about, where we partnered with WWF and a number of other organizations to bring this curriculum to students across the state of Maine. So let me know if the audio is playing in the first like 5 seconds of this video, and if it's not, we will not show the video. So
Yeah, I don't think it's coming through, unfortunately.
not okay, no
Yeah.
worries. Um, if you go to this website, you can watch a video about our work. But basically, it's showing clips from our workshop. And on here, we just have a bunch of the different resources. So you can see some of our videos, some of WWF's videos. We've brought together a bunch of these resources. So that is our kelp curriculum. And we will be building a shellfish and a seaweed, or sorry, not seaweed. This is the seaweed one. We'll be building a shellfish and a aquaponics slash finfish one that are similar to this. The next thing that I will show you is the Aquaculture Technology Program. So this is the Washington County Community College Aquaculture Technology Program. Again, this is the first 2-year associates and advanced degree program in the state of Maine for aquaculture. So this is their website where students can go to apply to the program. Again, most of you are probably not trying to apply to the program, so not sure that this website is the most useful for you, but still fun to see. And then the last thing here that I want to show you is the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Classroom. And so when I showed that big graph at the end of my slideshow, you saw all of those different organizations and all of the different aspects of workforce development, and they're all connected. By these lines, and it's kind of overwhelming and a little bit complicated. And so what we want to do with this learning hub is create a place where people can go to then route out to all of those different pathways. So this platform is still in development right now, but it is accessible online. It is live. It's just, going through some changes sometimes as I update it. So that's always a little bit fun. And on here, we have highlighted just a bunch of the other things that are going on in the state. So we have the Aquaculture and Shared Waters program. We have the Washington County Community College program. We have the Maine Aquaculture Association apprenticeship with GMRI, Maine Aquaculture Association, and Southern Maine Community College. We also have Maine Maritime Academy, other internship programs, and we're building this out and continuing to build it out. So we're always, if you reach out to me, I'll put my email up in just a second. But if you are interested in putting things on here or connecting, we can talk about how that might look. And on here, we have tabs for K through 12. And then we also have some online aquaculture learning modules, which are being built out. And these are kind of asynchronous opportunities for people to go and learn about aquaculture on their own. And then there are also workforce training opportunities. So that's kind of what we've got going on here. And I'm going to stop sharing. I think there were
Awesome.
some questions, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Maya, for the presentation. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a past life, I was a after school educator, so it sort of makes me really excited to see aquaculture being brought to the K-12 demographic. And yeah, workforce development is something that the Aquaculture Information Exchange wants to be involved in supporting. We've got some exciting things coming down the pipeline, which I can't really talk about yet, but next year should be exciting. But yeah, we can get into the questions. It looks like first we've got Mike, who said, great presentation. What was the process like for getting the 2-year associate's degree program spun up with the community college?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my supervisor, Ann Langston Knoll, has been working with the community college for a number of years on developing that program. When she started doing that program, they actually applied for a couple of different grants, and they were awarded funding for those. One of them was a CDS, so a congressionally directed spending grant, and the other was a USDA NIFA workforce grant. And so both of those have kind of funded the development of the program. And then within the development of the program, we have a partner at the community college who has handled a lot of the administrative things on their side, while we have done a lot more of the aquaculture expertise and the network building in the aquaculture industry and in the community. And so that partnership, we kind of bring these two things together, and we advise on the content that needs to be in the program along with some of our other partners. So the Maine Aquaculture Association and GMRI have helped with that as well. So that is how we've developed like what those standards are. And then, so those are industry standards. And then the community college comes back and says, okay, great, like those standards are what we're going to try to achieve, and this is what we require for an associate's program. So like what classes should we develop, and then we kind of co-create the classes that will be applicable to that. And if anybody wants to know more about that process, I can put you in touch with Annie, because she can definitely speak a lot more in depth to that process if anyone's interested in kind of going through it themselves. So.
Super cool. Yeah. And then next question's from Emma, who also thanks you for the presentation. She's wondering if you could provide a bit more detail on the exploring careers regarding the tours of farms and sites, who
Mhm.
assist in that funding and organization for the school, as well as how much time or personnel are needed for this.
Yeah, for sure. So the Exploring Aquaculture Careers class happens when we do it with the high schools. We partner with Jobs for Maine graduates, so they kind of find the schools that are interested in participating. So that helps a lot with that. And then the classes tend to be like 10 to 20 students in the group. And the funding is supported currently through those two grants that I mentioned before with the community college. We're applying for additional grants now to continue that program, because it really is having a lot of impact. We actually had the first pre-apprentice this past year who went through. First, he did the exploring class, and then from that class, he decided to do a pre-apprenticeship. So that's really exciting, kind of showing the, proof of how this can actually work to get people involved. But with regards to kind of building the network with the farm, a lot of the logistical things that happen, we end up organizing kind of the farm tours. The farmers that we connect with are usually in the area where the students are. So we try to connect them with Washington County farmers for the students who live in that area. And then logistically speaking, because it's a community college thing, and I think anybody who works with students will understand that this is a big deal, is like you have to understand how all of the liability stuff works. And so because the classes run through the community college, that kind of takes care of that piece of it. So it's not us going out and doing field trips. Like we are adjunct instructors that do things through the community college, and that's a big benefit of that partnership. So yes, again, we can, if anyone wants to connect more about how that happens, off off of this call, but still online, I guess, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, it looks like Diana works with Mike, and they're interested in following up with you on that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and then we have another question from Angela, and she was asking, what about regulators and regulation government partners to get through the next level of hurdles for new growers?
Mm. So with that question, are you referring to like connecting with the people that students can kind of see what they're up to, or are you talking about us connecting farmers with regulators? So I would appreciate just a tiny clarification on
Mhm.
that, if possible.
Yeah, Angela, feel free to go off mute or just type clarification in the chat, either way.
connecting with them so the regulators have the
Right.
insight into what's possible. Um, okay, so MAIC is a nonprofit organization, so we don't do any like policy or advocacy stuff. But with regards to connecting students with people who are kind of working in conservation or regulatory spaces, um, we do we do work with a number of partners who kind of are involved in like either through the Department of Marine Resources or through um, other channels. And we do a webinar series where we try to host people who are involved in different regulatory aspects. Um, we also, when we're teaching the aquaculture technology program, there's a class that is about the regulatory things that are happening. And we always are discussing that with the students as we're going through. And they're always being updated, the regulations are. And so we are staying on top of that as well to make sure that students, as they're coming through this program, are up to date on all of the important things like Vibrio regulations and leasing and licensing, permitting, and things like that. So I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to follow up.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry, Angel. It seems like your audio isn't working. Did anybody else have any questions? Nicole says she loves the seaweed curriculum. I loved all the kelp puns. Got to work more of those into my vernacular.
Yeah, all my friends are like, Maya, your job is just made for puns. Because I make them unintentionally now. I'm just, doing my thing out in the regular world and I make a kelp pun and all my
Yeah,
friends are like, hee hee
yeah.
hee, you made a kelp pun.
And somebody, I'm not sure, somebody who was filling out the exit survey was just asking if we archive these talks on the website, and we do. You can join the Connect and Learn group. I'll put that in the chat right now. And like I said, we also post them on the YouTube channel, but I make sure to post them in our AIE group as well. Okay, we've got Tyler saying they would love to get involved with the tech education program. Thanks, Celia. Um, yes, any other questions for Maya these last few minutes?
Okay, I see. Angela clarified.
Right.
Maybe ask the regulators to attend and have input to the curriculums. Um, I see. Okay.
Perfect. If nobody else has any questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, thanks again, Maya. This is a great presentation. And
Thank
if
you for the
people,
opportunity.
absolutely, and if people think of, other questions that you have after we get off here, um, you can, leave a comment in the Connect and Learn group when I post the recording, and I can tag Maya so she can respond. Uh, but yeah, other than that, thanks again, Maya. Thanks for everybody for
Yeah.
coming, and have a good rest of your week.